Megan Gale, it is so beautiful to have you here with me on Hear Me Roar. So thank you for joining me this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I feel like, and I can hardly believe this myself, that we have never actually met in person. Is that correct?
It's correct.
I feel like we have been somehow in each other's universes for quite some time, thanks to the
In each other's orbit.
thanks to the social sphere. And so for anyone listening or watching, this is the first time we've actually had a proper conversation. So I feel like this will be beautiful and amazing, not just for me, but also for our listeners and viewers. So thank you. And I kind of want to go back a little bit to who is Megan, but then I want to come right forward and talk about the how of everything.
It's okay. We can jump all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything sort of too pre-prescribed because, as you probably know by now, I'm fairly intuitive in terms of the flow and where we go. But I think, I mean, there are so many things, and I was just going through the model, the ambassador, the businesswoman, the actress, the TV personality, the philanthropist. And mostly my community are interested in, you know, the story behind the story and the how, the why, you know, all of that kind of thing. So I want to go back and talk about so many of the juicy pieces that made you who you are today and all the various hats that you wear. So can we just go back quickly? Because I find, you know, when I started Collective Hub in 2013, it was all about, but how, but why? How is it relatable? How is it attainable? And everyone always looks at it through the lens of Megan's amazing, but how do I get there? So if we go back to when you were, I think, 15 and you wanted to be a beauty therapist, is that right?
Done research. I mean, I'd love to delve into the how and the why, because I think that's really the core and foundation of where we start on our various journeys and so forth. But mine's pretty layered because of all the different hats. But I think in terms of going way back to how modeling and why, it came about, like most things with my life, they kind of come about by chance. And I think going in all those different directions is me kind of spotting opportunity, which I didn't really realize at certain ages, even being that young in my teens, that I was spotting opportunity. But I think I was, and grabbing it and just going, what the hell, let's just see what happens. And I've done that all my life. And so with modeling, that was actually not something I never really was growing up even thinking I could be a model. And back when I was many moons ago in my mid-teens, it wasn't as a well-known career path that it is now. And I only really started it through a modeling class. Through a modeling agency, I started deportment classes. And my mum actually thought it might be a good thing for me to build my confidence, because I'd recently had my heart absolutely shattered for the first time. And a lot of girls were doing deportment classes through modeling agency. It was kind of like the thing to do, like netball, I guess. It was like the new netball, and girls were doing it and having a bit of fun with it and learning how to walk and how to, you know, properly look after your skin and a little bit about fashion. So it was an interesting thing to do, but I didn't for a second think that a career would come from it. And then when I had my first graduation, the owners of the agency, who were kind of the judges of the graduation on the day, because we had to sort of do a catwalk show and stuff, they approached me and asked me if I wanted to work. And I said, well, look, I'm still at high school. And my mum and I spoke about it and thought it would be a good part-time job. And then I started working. And then my first year out of high school, I won a modelling competition. And that took me from Perth to Sydney, where I started to think, oh, okay, I might actually be able to forge a career from this. And from that point, when I made a decision that it would be something that I would work hard at, I was very driven and ambitious and tenacious with it. Despite all of that drive, though, I didn't really work that much in the first kind of 3 to 5 years. It was very, it was a hard slog.
Yeah, I want to jump back to something quickly because I love how you just kind of skim over and you're like, oh yeah, so just all these opportunities have come. So, I just kind of grab them. But where's the mindset piece to start all of that out, right? Because so many people every single day we're all presented with a myriad of opportunities, but there are those of us who are like, oh my gosh, I see an opportunity and I'm going to take action. So was there an early mindset piece that actually helped to stimulate that and propel you
Yeah.
forward?
Yeah, I see what you mean. So for me, it wasn't like a mindset where it was a strategic plan or pattern of thought that I thought, right, I've got this opportunity, here's my list, here's my plan. It was all intuition. So when you operate intuitively, which I often do, it kind of, you're almost in autopilot, and you're letting your gut kind of guide you, and it just happens more from an intuitive way rather than a strategic mindset kind of psychological way. Does that make sense? So for me,
100%.
that's how it wasn't like I was this really smart, switched on, um from a very intelligent necessarily point of view. It was more intuitive. So and look, and sometimes, and I often found too, when I went more with head over gut and heart, that's when mistakes were made. Because when your head can be very good at helping make decisions and grab opportunity, and there is an element of your head involved, but sometimes when it's all head, that's when you can operate from fear, and all those kind of things can come into it. So I've learned sometimes intuition is the best way.
Absolutely. And we'll dig more into that because it's also fascinating. I think when any of us start out, it's like, wow, an opportunity, and your intuition goes, take it. And then as you become more successful, more and more and more opportunities come at you every day, every hour of every day. And then it's about, okay, which ones do I say yes to? And in some cases, the power of no. Okay, so modeling. So tell us about that journey at the beginning, and then how you ended up in Italy, because I know you got a very big contract and you kind of became a big deal in Italy as well.
Yeah. And again, that was by chance and intuition, that opportunity. But prior to that, yeah, and me sort of touching on before about it being a hard slog. I went from being in Perth, which is a very small market, and in Perth, I was a very big fish in a small pond. I did very well there. But when I sort of won the modelling competition and went to Sydney, I was a very small fish in a very, very massive pond. And so it was almost like starting from scratch. My whole modelling portfolio got ripped apart. I think there was like 2 or 3 photos left. And recently, actually, I've been posting some of those early modelling pics because I've been sort of tidying up and, through the whole lockdown isolation thing, and coming across some photos, which has been really interesting. But, and taking me back a bit. But yeah, it was like starting from scratch. And I think my shift over to Sydney from Perth kind of coincided with a phase in which you would absolutely remember as well, when there was that kind of Kate Moss heroin chic. That was the kind of the look at the time, and I couldn't look less like the look of the time. I kind of missed my moment in terms of when there was the really tall, athletic, curvier kind of trend. It was kind of heading more into that, and so it made it even harder for me, not just being a newbie, a small fish in a big pond. I didn't have the look of the moment, which was quite crucial to have then. And so I felt that I didn't want to give up, because I don't like giving up, and I was determined to forge on. And I also really felt, again in my gut, that it was going to happen for me. And I think I was very, very stubborn and very persistent about that. And I remember not long before the Italy moment happened, my dad saying to me, because I would often go back to Perth because I'd run out of money. So I'd go back home, live with mum and dad for a bit, work in Perth, save up, come back to Sydney. And that was a cycle I did for a while. But I remember my dad saying to me, look, you've been trying this for quite a few years now, and it's really not happening the way you want it to. Do you think you should consider doing something else? and perhaps studying or perhaps pursuing another. And I said, oh, Dad, I can't. I've worked too hard. I've come too far. And I just feel in my bones it's going to happen. And I'm sure he thought, and a lot of other people probably thought, oh, she's, when you sort of think that, and you think maybe, is it just me knowing that it's going to happen, or am I just a little bit deluded thinking, and being a bit of false hope and a bit of, am I wanting it so bad I'm not seeing the reality that it's actually not going to? But that's when I had to go, no, you've got to back yourself in and trust your gut. It's going to happen. All signs point towards it not happening, but it will happen. And so then I went, the following year I thought to myself, I'm going to give it one more year and I'm going to try and work more in TV commercials because I hadn't worked in that area. The money's good. I can perhaps save up for whatever I'm going to do if it doesn't work out. So I started doing TV commercials. I got one for Clio magazine, one for Dove chocolate, and then the third one I got in that year, which was only about 3 months into the year, was one for an Italian client called Omnitel. And they were casting in Australia because they were filming in Australia. So they were trying to get their kind of protagonist for the commercial cast in Sydney. And I remember I went to the first casting, which was an absolute cattle call. So every model in Sydney was there. They culled it down then to 20. So then they sort of reviewed everyone again, top 20, and then it got down to 10. And so that was the third time they brought girls in and auditioned. And I went to the audition in the morning. I remember it was in North Sydney and I lived in Bondi at the time. And I went to the audition, by that time the client had flown out from Italy, met everyone, met the director, and then went back to Bondi and met my friends on the beach. And I remember sitting up at North Bondi with my friends, got a call from my manager saying, the client, it's basically between you and another girl, and the client really wants to see you again and run you through another screen test. So I remember just being 22 and silly and sort of saying to my friends, oh, I can't be bothered. I've already been over to North Sydney. I don't want to go back. And I thought to myself, oh, I better go. So I went and had a shower, changed, went back, and I almost didn't, but I went back and got the job. And so then I think it was 2 days later, shot the commercial, and then didn't think anything else of it. 3 weeks later, it screened in Italy, and my manager gets a phone call from the client saying, just this commercial's blowing up. All of the Italians want to know who this girl is in our commercial, so we want to fly Megan out and do a little press tour. And so I was on a plane to Italy within a week. And they flew me out at the pointy end of the plane, which I never thought I'd see. Which I was like, what is going on? This is mad. What's happening? It was literally like an overnight thing. And then I landed in Italy. And as soon as I got to customs and in Rome, I remember the customs guy just kind of looking at me and then whispering and looking at looking at my passport, and then he went and grabbed someone else, and he came over and looked at me just wide-eyed, and then they went and grabbed a whole bunch of other security guys and passport control people, and then there was about 8 of them staring at me and talking to me. I had no idea what they were saying. I thought I was going to get arrested, so I was terrified, but they just recognized me from the commercials and were flipping out. And then as I walked through the terminal, it just started as people following me, and I had no idea what was going on. It was weird. But from that point on, that was the tipping point of going from barely trying to get a job or barely being able to secure a job to complete success in another country. So it was bizarre. It was really weird.
Oh, my body gets anyway, I just had like shivers down my entire body at least 3 times during that. Thank you for sharing that story again. I've heard various iterations of that, and it is extraordinary. I want to pull 2 things out of that. One, when your dad said, do you think it's time to maybe try something else? And the second thing, and I was at North Bondi this morning myself. I know it's a very beautiful place to be. When you thought, oh, no, I'm having a good time, it's almost that, I don't know, is it that inner self-sabotage or is it that fear of success? I don't know, when you almost didn't go back to the second casting call.
I think that's just a lazy 22-year-old who's having too much fun on the beach. It's like, oh, can I be bothered going to over to North Sydney again? And then it was just a minute. It was a moment, but it was just, come on, stop being lazy. This is a job. They're serious. They're interested in you. Because I remember saying to my manager too, can't they just look at the tape from this morning? It was just me being completely lazy. And, you know, it was, I'm so glad I did actually go back. But yeah, and I think with my dad too, I have to say, it's not so much that he doubted me or my abilities or my potential. It was a parent worried for their child, that their child was just, I mean, you think with modeling too, you're constantly getting knocked back. And usually because something about you physically isn't right. I mean, it's that's pretty full on. And for a parent to watch their child get knocked back after knockback after knockback after knockback for years, of course you're going to start to worry and go, oh my God, how many more years are they going to be putting themselves through this? So it was out of pure parental concern that he was wanting me to maybe not leave it too late to pursue something else, and also to hopefully stop me from experiencing all this rejection time and time again.
Yeah, extraordinary. Okay, so let's then jump forward to Italy, because I mean, I think those of us, and mine's fairly well documented, I started my business in 2001 and it wasn't until 2013, 2012, so like an 11-year overnight success that finally something worked. And I went from, 11 years of no one knowing who I was to almost overnight, oh wow, something actually worked and this is kind of cool. So describe that moment of kind of hanging on and being resilient and tenacious enough to keep going, and then suddenly landing in Italy thinking you're going to be arrested and actually realizing it's the reverse of that. And actually everyone's like, wow, this woman's amazing. Who is she? So what does that feel like after, struggling and trying and having to fly back to your parents and everything else like that? When you suddenly hit that moment, what did that feel like?
Surreal. Like just, I can't like it's in a way it's just a blur in my head, but at the same time so vivid because of coming from such another extreme polar opposite scenario. No one really wants to hire you, no one knows you, no one's really reacting to you in any positive way, which was fine. I kind of knew that that's where I was, but then to go to just a whole country keen to know, I mean, work opportunities were flying at me as soon as I got over there. I mean, I came back from that first trip with so much work, like additional work, flow on work, other clients wanting to book me. And it was just like, I've come back home to Australia where things still haven't changed, yet I've got this whole other country of 60 million people who want to know me and clients that want to book me. And it was just like I was living two separate parallel lives at the same time. So that was very surreal. And as well, I think from going from complete anonymity to complete fame, I mean, the level that I went to without any kind of gradual getting used to, oh, okay, now I'm getting followed by paparazzi. Okay, now I'm signing autographs, and it's happening bit by bit. It went just to extreme. I had security guards. There were just at least 6 paparazzi on me that whole trip. If I went into a shop, the shop would fill up with people tugging at me, trying to get me to sign autographs. And I never experienced anything even close to that. So it was just such an I mean, psychologically, I think I coped pretty well, but it was just the whole time shaking my head going, what's going on? And is it going to be like this now for weeks, months, years? I didn't know, but I just kind of just thought, again, it's going back to that, not overanalyzing and thinking too much, just going, okay, this is happening. I'm just going to intuitively follow it and see where I go and try and make the best steps along the way. That was all it really was in terms of how do I navigate this, because I couldn't really do much else.
Yeah, that's extraordinary. And I think so many people kind of glorify fame and celebrity and want to be that. And then having been there, I guess, yeah, you suddenly you've got to navigate this entirely new world that you're unprepared for. So yeah, what an
just on that though, with me wanting to find success with modeling, success to me never meant fame. It meant more about just working and being accepted by my peers, by clients, by the industry, and doing well there. It didn't have to result in fame or fortune or any of that. That to me sometimes is just a byproduct. To me, success was doing well at my job and being acknowledged for it. And that's all I wanted, but not necessarily to be famous. Fame just kind of came in, and you know, I think I struggled with fame. I struggled with losing my anonymity because I didn't want to. That wasn't the end game for me, ever. And I think people confuse that sometimes, thinking, well, you know, you shouldn't really complain about being famous because that's what you wanted. And for me, no, it wasn't at all. I just wanted to, like anyone who does any job, I just wanted to do well at my job and be acknowledged for it. That's it, but not in the form of fame.
Oh, I love so much about you. And I love so much that you say that, because I think it's fascinating, you know, having started a magazine and a global media movement that is and was Collective Hub. It's interesting because we've interviewed, not myself personally, but over 6,000 people. I've only interviewed a handful myself. But what's been interesting about that is witnessing people's meteoric rise and how they respond to that. And I think, you know, some people maintain being grounded and human. And as you've so eloquently and beautifully just said, you know, that wasn't what I was after. It was just the byproduct of doing a good job. So I think that's just so critical and so important and makes you so lovable. How did you maintain, you know, staying grounded and keeping your eye on, I'm just here to do a great job. You know, that's what I want to do. I want to be really great at who I am and what I'm doing, rather than letting it go to your head and getting carried away with it all. So what are your tips for staying grounded when anyone has any kind of success?
I think for me, I think for several elements, I think for me, I never lost sight of what my objectives were. And again, not wanting to kind of get caught up in the fame thing, because it was never an attracting element for me. And I have to say too, I knew that a lot of success could result. It's not like I was like, oh wow, I didn't really think that might happen, that I might be famous. I knew that if you got very successful as a model, there's a chance of it. But I didn't think that I'd get to that point, and it's certainly not that fast. But I think what kept me grounded through it and have a heavy sense of realism throughout it, one is my parents and the way I was raised, because I was always raised to never think that you're better than anyone else and that we're all equal. And you know, even when you're sort of working in a job like with modeling, where it is such a collaborative effort, you're not doing it by yourself. There's a whole lot of other creative minds and artists that are helping you all. You're all there together to achieve one thing. So I was always very aware of that, and that I wasn't kind of up here and everyone else is here. And so that was due to upbringing and people around me. My friends kept me incredibly grounded. And I think as well, I realized even before finding fame, that I knew that it wouldn't be all it was cracked up to be. And having experienced it so swiftly and so on such a large scale, which Italy for me was a large scale. It wasn't global, but it was still large. And then it trickling on through Australia and sort of having it in your own backyard as well. I could see the trappings of it very, very easily. I could see, okay, this isn't necessarily everything it's cracked up to be. And so that keeps you grounded, knowing that it's not, that stops you from getting carried away with it. You realize that it's, you know, it's not that special to be famous.
Yeah.
Not.
Wow. Thank you. I want to fast forward and start to talk about current life with you being an entrepreneur, which maybe I'll just touch on quickly, is extraordinary for me, and welcome to the gang.
Thank you. I'm a newbie. Again, I'm a newbie.
But I mean, there's so many extraordinary things about that, because that's becoming an entrepreneur seriously is such a whole nother level of being grounded, isn't it? And opening up all your frailties and everything else. But I mean, you went on to you know, you were an actress in Mad Max and all sorts of other things.
Yeah,
And you were,
I just kept putting hats on.
and you were on TV with what, Getaway, Project Runway, Australia's Next Top Model. Like, there's so many different layers to you, and it's extraordinary. And we can touch on any of those if you want. But I wanted to fast forward a little bit. And I know, well, 2010, you launched, how do you say it? Is it
Isola.
Isola? I was going to
Yeah.
say, yeah, okay, good. I'm glad you said that and not me.
Italian. It's Italian for island.
Ah, beautiful. Yeah. Okay, so maybe we'll start there. Was that your kind of first foray, apart from ambassadorships and working with other brands? Was that your first foray into your own business?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was. So, an opportunity came along where I was, and I think these kind of opportunities, like with Isola, are very different to Mindful Life, and both experiences have taught me an incredible amount about startup brands and businesses and that whole world. But with Isola, an opportunity came along to have my own swimwear brand in 2008. So it took a good couple of years to kind of build that.
Was that someone approaching you? So it was someone proactively approaching you as a, yeah, okay.
C Folly to create a whole separate entity, but it was C Folly that came to me, and it was good in the sense that it, whilst I was creative director and oversaw everything from A to Z, it was great because I had, one, no financial risk because I didn't financially back it. What I contributed meant that I had a share in it and had a portion of that brand and business, but there was no financial risk for me. And so it was more of a licensing deal. And I had a team, whole infrastructure, and I could work on it and throw myself into it without a hell of a lot of risk. But I didn't own it. It wasn't mine to say it was all mine. It was a partially owned brand through a licensing deal. So that's usually what's more commonly done with celebrities and models and what have you. That's kind of more the common template. And I did a similar one with Target, where I had a licensing deal. I did a capsule for them, a homewares brand, which was also really interesting, and I learned a lot from that experience. But through those, and more, I wanted to sort of dip the toe in a bit more, and I wanted to create something myself that was mine, and I knew that would be a much harder path, a much riskier path, a longer path, because you're not there with someone going, I'm going to fund this, here's a project, here's your team, here's this. It's literally scratch. It's an idea in your head and that's it.
Yeah.
Action.
So yes, which many of us know only too well. So can we go into, so was that 2014 that you came up with the idea for Mindful Life? Was that around the time your first child, River, was born? Yeah, or you're pregnant?
I was pregnant and about to give birth. And that Mindful Life, it wasn't even a name. It was just the fact that when I was pregnant, I was very, very conscious about everything I ate, I put on my skin, and my whole kind of beliefs or my whole viewpoint on all of that kind of shifted when I became pregnant massively. And through that shift, and obviously having River, and that kind of flowed on through what I was putting on his skin, and being more conscious of ingredients and how things are made, and wanting to be more educated in that. But also, I mean, not to say there weren't some beautiful products out there that I could use on him, but I felt that there wasn't enough, and I felt that I wanted to add to that pool and grow that particular market of safe, natural, gentle products that to give other parents like me more peace of mind, and products that I felt that, because I was kind of getting a nappy cream from here because I liked that one. I sort of liked the lotion, but maybe not the massage oil, but I liked that wash. So I had this cobbled together multi-range of products. And I thought, I'm not going to be reinventing the wheel here necessarily, but I'm going to be growing this space that I feel very passionate about. So that's how it kind of started. And so I thought, I don't know, though, beyond this idea. I've never done this before. I've never done a business from scratch before, let alone create products. How does one do that? So, that takes some time, especially when you're by yourself. And, for me, I wasn't at a position where I could have with Isa, a full staff and an office and all of that. So I sort of just started researching, and I then sort of brought in people who had skill sets in areas that I didn't. So I outsourced.
So talk me through that, because I know a lot of people often say to me, when you start, because, when I started a magazine, never having worked in a magazine or media, I Googled how to start a magazine. And I just... start a magazine. Maybe like you, I just put one foot in front of the other. And like you, with Mindful Life, I was and am still completely 100% self-funded. So how did you know who to hire first or who to outsource to first? Because there's always that question about, is it someone in product development? Is it someone to develop the brand? Or is it someone to, market, sell and distribute the brand? So what was your first person that you kind of pulled in to be like, oh my gosh, how do I even start to build this product?
Yeah, so it was more around brand management first. So to kind of get, okay, what does this brand look like? What is its DNA? What does it stand for? What's its purpose? And that kind of then put me on a path of, when I got to purpose, I thought, I want it to be more than just to make safe, gentle, natural products for babies and children should be a given, not its purpose. All products should be like that for children, in my opinion, but that's not its purpose. I wanted it to have a bigger purpose and a bigger objective than I'm just making products, because I thought, unless I can answer that, I was looking down the track of having the brand, answering questions like I'm answering for you right now, and being able to give it a purpose. So I stopped, I pressed pause for quite a while. And I think by this point I was pregnant with Rosie, and I started to think about what it had meant for me to be a parent so far, and what were my takeaways, and what did I want for this next baby. And apart from the product element, I started to dig deep and go more from an emotional perspective, because it is very important with a business and a product that there is an emotion there. If it's not, what is it? So it has to be more than even just my passion to do a business. There has to be something that comes that's authentic. And that's just, so I just sat with it for a while, and then it just hit me like a ton one day, because I started to think about some of my biggest takeaways from being a parent. And some of my biggest takeaways are, in the early days of having River, and I knew that I could apply this to Rosie as well, I would have other parents, including my own mum, say to me, just don't rush away those early years. Sit with them, enjoy being with your children. Don't let work rule everything or the stresses of life. Just enjoy them while they're young, because it doesn't last long, and keep that connection. Because, and this would often be by mums and parents who's had kids in their 20s who are saying, I wish I could have that time back. Don't wish it away. And that then put me on a path of thinking of, it's about being mindful of your children, your bond, life, not letting crap get in the way. Don't lose those moments. And so then to me, it's like the products will be great. They will be great. I know I'll make them great, because I'm a perfectionist. But it's more about what they represent. And to me, started to look at them more like tools for parents to use to bond with their kids through bath, through massage, and then being mindful of how they're made. And then beyond that, I could see I can apply this to so much. And then this brand can be about even people who aren't parents, about being mindful of your stress levels, how you're working, your relationships, on and on and on. And so I started to go, okay, the products, let's work on that. But let's look at having this, the core is mindfulness and awareness and self-care and nurturing connections with yourself and with your loved ones. That was when I went, that's it. This is it. This is what I'm going to springboard off. This is my why and this is my purpose. And that then just went bang for me.
Okay.
I had it. And so then I just went on. And then I started, as I went, okay, so let's sort of look at the product. So we're going to get onto a creative team. We need to know what this brand looks like.
Can I just stop you on I
Sure.
just need to stop you on the purpose bit first, because thank you. What you just said, I think, is the single most important thing in business. It's
Yep.
like once you know what your purpose is and what your why is and what you stand for and what the feeling is that you want people to have, then from there, I always talk about the synchronicity and the serendipity and everything just flows. And I think so many people start with the product in mind, and I'm always like, let's just agree we're going to make a great product, but what do you stand for? So you just like gave like the best speech accidentally maybe of like, you know, how to create a product, how to start with a purpose-driven business. So that is so beautiful. Okay, let's go on to the next bit. What happened then?
Say though, just off that is, just because you find that doesn't mean it's going to be an easy path. Because you'll find, and you would know too, you'll find that there will be so many things that take you off your purpose. But I think the important thing is to remember to come back to it. Keep coming back to your why. Like I've had so many times where I've been sitting on the floor sobbing, rocking in the corner because it's just too hard. Because startups are hard. They're horrible. And you really got to have some grit and determination if you're going to keep pushing through. But one thing that will help you push through is keep coming back to why you did it. Don't get distracted and bogged down with the hurdles and the challenges, because they're going to be there to pull you away. You have to keep coming back to it.
Do you have a ritual around that? Because I know for me, I say every morning, like, you know, I've been through hell and back in so many iterations in my business journey, but every single morning I go, oh, what am I here to do? And then I go, this is bigger than me, you know, get out of your ego, get out of your identity. Just why are you here? Why are you here? Why are you here? And I have a really simple, you know, I'm here to be an entrepreneur for entrepreneurs, living my life out loud, showing that anything's possible. Okay, girl, get off the floor, go. So, I mean, I remind myself every single day, and then I'm like, all the stuff and all the bits that come from that are like, okay, they are, again, a byproduct, but it's like, what am I here to do? Is this serving my purpose every single day? So for you, is there a specific ritual, routine, discipline, something when you are potentially sobbing on the bathroom floor and it is overwhelming? Is there something that brings you back to your purpose? Is there something that you do?
I think first and foremost, it's important to sit on the floor and cry if that's what you need to do. Don't judge yourself for it. Sometimes it's, as I said, it's hard, and there'll be days where everything, and it always seems to be too that everything will just all come at once. And I even had one of those days yesterday, and we were talking about doing this, and I was like, oh my God, I haven't emailed you, I haven't got back to you on it, because everything's been happening at once at the moment. And I started to feel like I might spiral, and that's the beauty of this business and this, my why, is that it keeps reminding me, boy, are you being mindful right now? Are you practicing what you preach? Are you being conscious of your stress levels? Are you getting in your head? Don't. And I stopped it. And I think that is to answer your question, that is one of my resources that I pull from, is catching yourself, being mindful, having that which is extreme self-awareness, to kind of go, it's not the end of the world. It's not that big.
Yeah.
It's really not. And like everything else, you've kind of had to challenge yourself with, and had hurdles you have had to jump over. It passes. So don't get crazy. We're okay. Just let it go for now. And one of my biggest things too is especially stop and assess. Is anyone, if you feel like I've got to get back on my computer and email and do this and maybe you don't. Maybe you're just adding more pressure onto yourself than you need to. So it's about stopping and assessing how bad things really are. What actually needs to be done versus you wanting to do something. And other little things I pull from as well. Like sometimes I'll just go, I need to just turn off my phone, shut the computer and go hang out with my kids and dip into their world, because that's going to just take me somewhere else that's a lot more pleasant and a lot nicer. It might be that I go for a walk, I listen to music. I do things that allow my mind and my emotions to switch off, and I call it disconnecting to reconnect. Because that, I think, is just so beneficial for all of us. It could be for 5 minutes, it could be for 5 hours. But I think knowing when to step away from something, because if you don't, and you get like that mouse on a wheel mentality, you will hit a wall and it won't be nice and it won't be fun. So that's kind of what I try and do as much as I can.
Yeah, very, very wise words. And I think going back to your purpose as well, I think something around mindful life is that you have got the e-commerce side and the product side, but you've also got this beautiful content side, which gives so many tips and meditations and ways of being. And I think that's a really beautiful duality in your business. So can I just jump into quickly the supply chain? Like, how did you know then, once you had your purpose and someone had helped to develop the brand ethos and what you stood for, how did you actually go, okay, right, I'm going to make a product? Like, where do you even start with that?
Again, you just kind of put one foot in front of the other, like you were saying earlier, and you ask questions and you talk to people and you kind of just think about, okay, who do I know that might know the answer to this, or who do I know that might know someone? And if you start digging and asking, you get, you're not going to, no one's going to hand it all to you in a box with a bow and go, there you go. You've got to use your mind and you've got to think about, how am I going to get this information? And I'm sure you did it as well. Like, okay, who do I know? Who can I ask? And once you start to open that up and unpack all of that, that's when you start to go, oh, okay, I found that. And then it leads you on to the next person or the next bit of information or the next location. And then you just keep going. And that's all I did. And look, you'll sometimes, you know, I kind of liken it to going through a maze. Sometimes you go, okay, I'm on a good path, and you're like, uh-oh, no, dead end. I've gone the wrong way. Yes. And sometimes that might not be a very nice experience. Sometimes it'll just be a little hiccup and then you'll be back on track. And sometimes you'll go down that path where it's like, oh, I'm on it, I'm good. And it just, that'll change daily and weekly. And even the not so great paths you might go down, you've got to try and take learnings out of it. I mean, I've had some, even in the last year, I've had some shocking things that I've had to go through, which I won't bore you with or delve into, but it's just about what can you learn from it and how can you apply it in your next steps forward. You know, I'm only just over a year old. I've made it to year 1.
Yeah, you.
And just in terms of being a functioning business, and it's been the hardest year, I think, of my working life.
Can you give me one shocking example? Go as deep or as shallow as you like, and how you got through it and what you learnt from it. Because, I mean, I could give you many around cash flow or legals or trademarking or a myriad of other things that I've had over the years. But yeah, is there one that kind of stands out for you?
There is, but I'm a bit hesitant to talk about it. Not because I don't want to. It's because of, you know, it's never an experience. It's just you. There's other people involved.
Yes. Okay.
So I'm careful.
Let's leave that there then. But let's just
saying how I say it.
but I just want to say thank you for being courageous, because you are, and I watch across the social sphere so often, you know, various iterations of your business. And I also want to jump into something that happened more recently, and I want to just say thank you personally, because you know, we both, I think when we kind of really, really connected was earlier in 2020 through the hideous bushfires that ravaged our country. And, you know, you and I both accidentally jumped in at the same time and got really, really passionate. And you were sharing.
Kind of like went, whoom, and just rolled together through this.
Yeah.
And you were great. I mean, you certainly spurred me on and got me to, like, I was just with you on that and just obsessed with trying to do whatever. I kept checking your page and what is she doing? How can I help? How can I connect? And it was just a really, that whole time, beyond you and I, but just everyone. It's like Australia as a community just kind of banded together and got it done. And it was just amazing watching it was part of. And
it was, I think, such a hideous experience for so many people. But I think the unity and the camaraderie and the relationships, and I mean, you and I together around that was just extraordinary. So I want to say thank you, because I think every single post that I shared, you then shared, and we were at one point together going, okay, how do we get helicopters? And we had all this stuff going on. And I think it was a really beautiful example of how, you know, when you just think laterally, as we have to do in business every single day, and we just think, what's the next step and how can we be of service and how can we use our platforms, our voices, our tenacity, resilience, whatever it is, to just do this thing. So thank you. And I know, and it's extraordinary when you say that Mindful Life is just in its second year, because there was one particular day during that time in January where you were like, right, I'm going to give, I think, all the revenue for an entire day. And I just watched that and I just thought, knowing how tough it is as a small business owner, just, giving away all of that. And I mean, I just really celebrate and applaud you for that and so much else that you do, philanthropically. And that is probably the next part of you. I mean, do you want to just touch on some of the philanthropic work that you do and why you do it and why you give so selflessly of yourself to so many causes?
I think it's again, it comes back to probably how it was raised, and especially my mum being such a giving, helpful, caring person that, that's luckily had a lasting impact on me. And I just, I to the point where I feel bad if I can't help everyone, but you can't help everyone always. I mean, there's a point where you can't. But where I can and when I can, I like to. And it's just, it's probably from a selfish perspective, it feels good. But I think as well, when you do have an ability to spread a more far-reaching message than perhaps the next person, then if you can, I think you should. And I don't dedicate myself to any one particular cause or charity, but where I can and when they come into my lives and where I feel like I can perhaps have an impact or make a difference, then I will. One of the more, I guess, lovely ones was, I remember it was only a couple of Christmases ago, and I'm a big supporter and fan of St Kilda Mums because I think they do amazing work. But they'd done a Christmas appeal. And I remember being in Perth for Christmas and I saw it come up in my feed and I thought, oh, good on them, I'll share that. And I shared it. And off the back of just one share, I think they got $50,000 in donations or something. Just to share. And I just thought, my God, that's just they were so thankful. And it's those moments where you go, God, it's just one little second of your time and one little thing that can help an organisation and the people they're trying to support. And that's just awesome. And so, if I can do that in my life as well, and not saying I'm, some amazing Mother Teresa saint, but I think, I almost have an obligation to, as a public person, to where I can contribute in that way.
Yeah. Thank you. And to people listening and watching, I think a lot of people will say, oh, but you've got a big platform, you can do that. And I would say to everyone, everyone has the opportunity to make an impact.
Everyone has a platform. Now, really. If you're on social media, even if you've got 10 followers, that's 10 people you can influence. And that's
everyone has a voice. Yeah.
You do. You really do.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Okay, well, I think that probably almost brings us to the end of this. Thank you so much for being so open and raw and real and honest and vulnerable and giving so much of yourself so selflessly. So where can people follow you and Mindful Life?
So with me, I'm not on Twitter so much anymore. I don't know if anyone is. Are we on Twitter anymore? I don't think we're on Twitter, are we? Instagram just sort of came in. I'm Megan K. Gale on Instagram. Mindful Life is Your Mindful Life on Instagram. And for the Mindful Life website, it's themindfullife.com.
Yeah, thank you. Well, everyone go support, follow. Megan is truly amazing and it is so beautiful to actually connect with you. So thank you so much for being on. Hear me
We've
roll.
both got our matching glasses and our little roll next to it as well. All black and white. Oh, look at us. It's like twins.
Twinning today. I love that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.